Hello everyone and welcome to the 1.31 release video for GoTechnology Hub 2. This is probably going to be quite a short video because there's only a few modifications really to talk you through for this one. That's because we've been spending most of our time doing behind the scenes work. Some of that is upgrading the frameworks we use to get them to the latest versions, which will give you a nice performance increase. But also we've been working on features which aren't ready yet. They're quite large, so we've been splitting them out over a few different releases. So they'll be coming up in future. If you do want to see the full list of changes and modifications that have been made, we'd recommend you go and you check out the release notes section. And we have actually updated the release notes sites. We've added in some additional documents, some additional guidance there. And also we have added in a little description beneath each one just to help you out. The 1.31 patch notes are here at the top in a variety of different formats. And yeah. That will give you the full details. But what we'll do is we'll go through the kind of two major changes that we've got on screen, and then there's one other one which is a bit more of a behind the scenes one, which I will talk a little bit through. So the ones that we've got on screen are we've got a little bit of a change made to the digital document creation screen, just to add in some additional functionality. When we created the digital document screens, obviously we were looking at how close can we get to your actual documents so that the layout of them is as similar as possible. And that's something we've been working on over time. And we've just added in a little feature to kind of further that. It's very minor, but hopefully it helps to get it closer to what you're used to seeing with your paper documents. And that's the ability to add a title above anything on the header screen. So there we can see, I've made a little typo there, that you can just add header rows in there, and you can also add in like a little row break. So that was something that we've been requested for a little while now. People like that kind of helps to break up the information a little bit more, makes it look more familiar to the way people are expecting to see it. So that's one of the features. And then the other feature that I wanted to talk about was just something that we've added in on the workpack side. And this is something that we hope to kind of roll out further. It's kind of the first part of something that we want to do. And what it is the ability to kind of trigger notifications from within the screens themselves. So for this one here, it's the notification on approvals. The idea being that you come in to the screen and you create in the work pack, and then you're assigning the people who are going to be responsible for doing the sign-offs of it. So you can see if you go into here, you can see this one in particular is assigned to me. If we were to go back to the work packs, we could then assign the next one to somebody else. There's just the assigned to there. And what would happen is once I'd finished creating this, or once whoever created it was finished, they would hit notify, and that would notify me that I'm supposed to be coming in. I'm the next person in line to notify. They would fill in this, or they would reject it with comments, and then once that was done, they would hit notify, and that would bring in the next person. And there's an ability to do that for each round as well, so you can do it for each round. The idea behind that is just to get that kind of workflow going. And like I said, this is really kind of the tip of the iceberg part of it, where you're kind of manually triggering these things. But in future, what we want to get to is a point where there's a real kind of workflow built together, where those notifications kind of come automatically based on certain events, and we want to have it throughout the system. So like I said, that's a pretty small update for you. Those are the only on-screen ones to show you, but there is another one that I'll just talk about as well. And in order to talk about that, because it's kind of a behind the scenes modification, switched over to this PowerPoint presentation I've put together. So this is about a modification we've made to the API. Just as a refresher to people, we talk about APIs quite a lot. You might not be 100% familiar with what that means. So you have UIs, which are user interfaces. Those are used by people. And then you've got APIs, which are application programming interfaces, and they're used by software. So what we have in here is there's you or me or anyone we know is using the user interface. The user interface is the buttons, the fields, we're clicking on things in the web browser, that's the user interface. And through that, we can add individual records or update or delete individual records, but we can also put in spreadsheets as well. That's quite a popular way of populating GoTechnology. You want to make a lot of changes at once. You can just put it in for a spreadsheet. Up until now, within the API, it's been possible to add records or update records on an individual basis just by directly calling in. So we've got our robot. He represents someone who isn't human, and that's kind of the API, because an API really is almost like a tunnel or a pipe, where you're connecting in. It's an address that a piece of software could interact with. And you could that piece of software, or in our case this robot, could do individual records, update, delete. It could do that over and over again, and because it's software, it doesn't really care. But it's also handy sometimes to be able to do spreadsheets. And up until now, it couldn't do that. You couldn't just drop a spreadsheet into this endpoint and it would go through that. And the reason we wanted to add that in is because we want to be as compatible as possible with as many different pieces of software as possible. So if you have a piece of software that you want to integrate in with GoTechnology, and the way that it natively puts things out is in a spreadsheet format, then it helps if we can just accept that spreadsheet format. So your piece of software just shoots out that spreadsheet, and then our API can accept that and update based on that. So that's what we've done. So it's a little bit nerdy and unglamorous, but it's something that will help with that kind of integration piece. Now you might be wondering, probably aren't, but you might be wondering, do you use UIs and APIs together? And of course the answer to that is yes. That's how our companion app works, where you're using the user interface on the phone, which is then connecting into the API and making the changes. And the way it does that is it has a very small robot inside it. It doesn't really. But yeah, so that's how it works. You've got the companion app is a piece of software. It happens to be a piece of software that we also created, but we use the same API that you would be using as well. Anyway, that's all the updates. I hope you enjoyed that, and particularly the robot-related chat. And thanks for watching.